I was in that weird stage after high school where everyone kept asking, so what's next? College wasn't really on my radar yet. I worked part-time at a coffee shop and picked up babysitting gigs whenever I could. My mom knew the Harris family, really nice people who lived in this massive house on the edge of town. They had one daughter, Rosie, who was 10. I'd sat for her once 2 years ago, and she was one of the easiest kids I'd ever watched. Sweet, polite, a little shy, but always smiling. She loved drawing and carried a stuffed rabbit everywhere. Bun Bun. So when Mrs. Harris texted asking if I could babysit on a Friday night, I said yes without thinking. The pay was good, and I had met Rosie before. When I pulled up that night, the first thing I noticed was how quiet the neighborhood felt. Big, modern houses, perfect lawns, but not much life. No kids on bikes, no people walking dogs, just rows of houses with glowing windows. Their place had 2 floors and one of those big front doors that made you feel small standing in front of it. Mr. and Mrs. Harris were already dressed up when they answered. They looked a little rushed. Mrs. Harris kissed my cheek, thanked me a dozen times, and mentioned that Rosie had been very quiet all day. She said maybe Rosie was getting sick and reminded me about her strawberry allergy. Apparently even a little bit could make her break out in hives. They headed out and I turned to see Rosie sitting at the bottom of the stairs, but something felt off. She didn't smile like usual. She just sat there holding a porcelain doll I'd never seen before. It was one of those old-fashioned ones with glassy eyes and stiff curls. I tried not to make a face. "Hey, Rosie," I said gently. She looked up, but her eyes didn't really meet mine. "Hi." Her voice was flat, almost like she was bored. I brushed it off. Kids have moods, right? The first hour was uneventful. She sat on the living room rug with that doll while I scrolled through my phone. I asked if she wanted a snack, but she shook her head. That was weird. Rosie was usually all about snacks. I made some popcorn anyway, but she didn't touch it. Around 7, I felt a dull headache creeping in. I rubbed my temples, and that's when she spoke. "My mommy has special juice for that," she said. Her eyes finally locked onto mine, and the way she said it made me pause. "Oh? What kind of juice?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She stood up without answering and walked into the kitchen. I followed and watched her open the fridge like she already knew where everything was. She pulled out a jug of orange juice, poured it into a glass, and slid it across the counter toward me. "Here," she said. Her face didn't move. No smile, no curiosity, just blank. I hesitated, but honestly, I didn't see a reason not to drink it. Maybe Mrs. Harris had told her that trick before. So I took a sip. It tasted normal, but I didn't like orange juice that much, so I just took one more sip and left it. But 15 minutes later, I felt heavy. My head was pounding and my eyelids wanted to close. I figured it was just the headache getting worse. When I looked up, Rosie was sitting across from me at the table, staring, not blinking. I forced a laugh. "You're kind of creeping me out, kiddo." She tilted her head slightly but didn't answer. I stood to stretch, hoping to shake off the weird feeling, and that's when I noticed something strange. Tucked halfway under the couch cushion in the living room was Bun Bun, the stuffed rabbit Rosie never let out of her sight. "Hey," I said, pulling it out. "Look who I found hiding." Her eyes flicked to it, then away, as if it meant nothing to her. That wasn't right. The real Rosie would have snatched Bun Bun from my hands immediately. A cold chill ran through me. I set it on the couch, trying to stay calm. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she really wasn't feeling well. But then she came back from the kitchen holding a cookie on a napkin. "Want one?" she asked softly. It looked homemade. A smear of pink jam glistened on the edge. I froze. Mrs. Harris's voice rang in my head. "Rosie's allergic to strawberries." I forced a smile, my heart racing. "You know I'm good, thanks." Her blank expression didn't change. She just placed the cookie in front of me and whispered, "You were supposed to be asleep by now." I stared at her. "What did you just say?" She looked at the clock, then back at me. It's almost time. My stomach dropped. I stood slowly, the room spinning a little from the juice. "You're not Rosie," I said quietly. She tilted her head again, calm as ever. "I don't understand what you're saying and why. I'm Rosie. You should have finished the juice." I asked her again for her full name. She remained silent. My throat went dry. "Where's Rosie?" She didn't answer. She just glanced toward the window. Then I saw the basement door key in her skirt's pocket. Panic cut through the haze in my brain. I lunged for the front door, but when I yanked it, the chain lock snapped tight. I hadn't even noticed she'd latched it earlier. I spun around. She was still standing there watching me. "You can't leave," she said softly. "He's coming." I stumbled down the hall and ducked into the downstairs bathroom, slamming the lock. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. 911. The dispatcher answered, but my words came out slurred. I explained about the juice, the girl, the cookie. I gave the address and begged them to hurry. Outside the door, I heard her small footsteps pacing. Then she crouched low and spoke through the crack near the floor. "You ruined it," she whispered. "He said it would be easy." I pressed my back to the wall, tears burning my eyes. The sirens came quicker than I expected. I heard the pounding on the front door and voices shouting. The bathroom door shook as I unlocked it and stumbled out. The police found her sitting calmly on the living room floor, hands folded in her lap. She didn't fight, didn't cry. She just told them her name was Ellie. They searched the house and found Rosie locked in a storage room in the basement, terrified but safe. When she saw me, she clung to Bun Bun and sobbed into my shirt. Ellie barely blinked as they let her out. There should have been relief after this, but it wasn't. The police asked questions for hours. Ellie said a man named Luke told her what to do. She met him at a bus station. He promised her money and a place to stay if she helped. She couldn't describe him well, just tall and dark jacket. No one found him. Because she was under 18, they didn't charge her as an adult. They sent her to some juvenile psychiatric facility. I couldn't stop thinking about her words. "You were supposed to be asleep by now." The way she watched me, calm, expectant. Like I'd ruined not just a plan, but a script she'd been rehearsing. For weeks after, I jumped at every sound. A knock on the door made my chest tighten. Kids at the coffee shop where I worked made me nervous. Their blank stares, their quick smiles. I couldn't look at them without remembering Ellie's vacant eyes. The Harris family moved a few months later. Mrs. Harris texted me once, thanking me again, saying they could never repay me for protecting Rosie. But I never babysat again. Sometimes late at night I picture the strawberry jam on that cookie. Just a little more, and I probably wouldn't have woken up. And the scariest part isn't even that. It's knowing Ellie wasn't the real danger. She was just the bait. The man who sent her is still out there, and maybe he's found another Ellie by now. I was 19 the first time I thought about babysitting again. I'd just finished my first semester at community college in Elkhart, Indiana, and was already running on fumes. The bookstore job on campus paid minimum wage, and between rent, gas, and ramen noodles, I was drowning. I remembered how easy babysitting used to be in high school. $10 an hour for sitting on a couch while kids watched cartoons. So I figured, why not? Instead of posting online, I went old school. I made paper flyers, cut little pull tabs with my number, and stuck them up at the grocery store, laundromat, even the bulletin board at a gas station. It felt almost wholesome, like something out of the 90s. That was the point. Parents who didn't want to trust strangers on the internet might trust me. 2 days later, my phone rang. The woman's voice on the line was soft, tired. She said her name was Melissa. She explained she was a nurse at the hospital and a single mom. She had a 6-year-old named Mason who needed watching for a few hours while she worked a late shift. Her story clicked all the right sympathy buttons. Nurse, single mom, a little boy with a sweet, safe name. And then she added the part that hooked me. "I'll pay extra if you can stay late. Probably until 2 a.m., but you'll have cash in your hand before you leave." I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds before saying yes. She texted me the address. It was on the edge of town, past the gas station where the lights start thinning out and the houses are farther apart. I told myself it was fine. She sounded kind. She sounded like she trusted me. And honestly, I needed the money too badly to think too hard. The next night, I drove out there. It was around 7:15 when I pulled up. The house was narrow and 2 stories, gray siding with a crooked porch light glowing by the door. The whole street felt empty. Not abandoned exactly, but hushed. The kind of quiet where you keep your windows rolled up. I sat in my car and texted her, "Hey, I'm here a little early." A reply buzzed back almost instantly. "Come on in." Doors open. I had to leave for my shift early. Mason should be in his pajamas already. "Thanks again." That threw me. Usually parents wanted to meet first. Go over bedtime, allergies, emergency numbers. But I told myself, nurses get called in, right? Emergencies happen. I got out, locked my car, and went inside. The first thing that hit me was the smell. The air was stale, like the place hadn't been opened up in a while. Something faintly sour, like milk gone bad, hung under it. The only light came from the kitchen, casting a yellow glow over the living room. The space was plain. Sagging couch, TV on a stand, a plastic tub of toys shoved in the corner, crayon scribbles on the coffee table. It all screamed, "Kid lives here," but in a weird, staged way, like someone set it up to look that way. "Hey, Mason?" I called softly. My voice felt too loud. No answer. I shut the door behind me and, out of habit, locked it. Then I checked the kitchen, the hallway. One bedroom door was cracked. I pushed it open. Twin bed, dinosaur sheets, toys scattered, but no kid. "Hey buddy, I'm Jenna. Your mom asked me to hang out tonight." Silence. I texted Melissa again. "I don't see Mason anywhere. Is he already asleep?" No reply. I tried to stay calm. Kids hide. Maybe he was shy. Maybe he'd fallen asleep in some corner. I kept checking rooms. Bathroom, guest room, closet, empty. When I came back to the living room, my stomach dropped. The front door was standing open. I know I had locked it. I was sure. My hands shook as I texted again. "Your front door was open. Did Mason go outside?" Still no response. That's when I heard it. A slow creak from upstairs. My chest tightened. I hadn't gone upstairs yet. I told myself it was just the house settling, but my legs moved anyway, carrying me up the staircase. Each step groaned under my weight. At the end of the hall, a door that had been shut before was cracked open now. I pushed it wider. The room was almost bare, just a stained mattress on the floor. No furniture, no curtains. But the far wall made my stomach twist. Scratches. Deep gouges carved into the paint like someone had clawed at it. Beneath the marks, a small pile of broken crayons. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My mind kept circling the same thought. This wasn't a kid's room. This was something else. Then I heard it. The front door shutting, firm and final. I bolted down the stairs. He was standing by the door. A man, stocky build, dark jacket. Beanie pulled low, hands in his pockets. I couldn't see his eyes. "Who are you?" My voice came out small. He didn't answer. "Where's Melissa?" For a moment, nothing. Then his voice, calm and even. "There's no Melissa." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. What do you mean?" Instead of replying, he took one step toward me, then another. That was all I needed. I spun, tore through the kitchen, shoved open the back door, and ran. The night air slapped me in the face as I sprinted across the yard. An old shed blurred past. Branches scratched my arms as I crashed into the tree line. My lungs burned, but I didn't stop. Not until I dropped behind a fallen trunk, chest heaving, trying not to make a sound. For a minute, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching through the leaves. And his voice, drifting through the dark. "You shouldn't have come here. I clamped my hands over my mouth, stayed perfectly still. His steps moved closer, then paused, then faded. I waited. 10 minutes, maybe more. Finally, I crept out, circling wide until I found the road. My car was still there, untouched. I drove straight to the nearest gas station, shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone when I called the police. They searched the house. It was empty. No child's clothes, no photos, no signs anyone lived there. The toys looked like yard sale leftovers. The number Melissa used, disconnected. The property, the officer explained, had been foreclosed for months. Nothing ever came of it. I never babysat again. I never even looked at another flyer on a corkboard. Sometimes I dream about that upstairs wall, the scratches, the crayons. I wonder if some kid was trapped there once, or if they were just props, left to make people like me believe the story. But the part that sticks with me most isn't the room. It isn't even the man. It's the thought that maybe I wasn't the first person to walk into that house, and maybe I won't be the last. I started babysitting when I was 16, mostly to make some quick money and save up for a car. It was easy work, coloring books, board games, and making sure kids didn't burn the house down while their parents were gone. Most of the families in my neighborhood knew me through school or church, so I never really felt nervous about it. That changed after the night I babysat for Leo. It was early fall when I got the call. Mrs. Jacobs, a mom who lived across town, said she needed someone to watch her 9-year-old son for the evening. She had gotten my number through another parent I babysat for. I almost said no because I didn't know her that well, but she sounded desperate, and honestly, I needed the cash. When I showed up, the house looked normal enough. A 2-story place with a trimmed yard and a basketball hoop in the driveway. Mrs. Jacobs greeted me at the door, already dressed up like she was late for something. Her husband came down the stairs fumbling with his tie. "Thank you so much for coming, Sophia," she said, grabbing her purse. "Leo's already had dinner, so it should be an easy night. Just make sure he gets to bed by 9. They both rushed out before I could ask many questions. The second the door closed, Leo appeared from the hallway. He wasn't like most kids I babysat. Usually they're bouncing with energy or shy at first. But Leo just stood there, staring at me with this blank look. He had messy brown hair that covered part of his forehead and wore a faded hoodie, even though it wasn't cold inside. "You're not the regular babysitter," he said flatly. I smiled and tried to keep it light. "Nope, I'm Sophia. Nice to meet you." He just nodded, still staring, and then walked back down the hall without another word. I figured he was just shy, so I followed him to the living room. He was sitting on the couch, the TV remote in his lap. "Do you want to watch something?" I asked. He shrugged. "You can pick." So I put on some random cartoon and sat at the other end of the couch. After a few minutes, I realized he wasn't watching the TV at all. He was watching me. Every time I glanced over, his eyes flicked away, but I could feel it. It was unsettling, but I told myself he was just being a weird kid. About an hour in, I offered to play a board game. He said no. I suggested cards, hide and seek, even video games. He refused everything. Finally, I asked, "What do you usually do when your parents aren't home?" His lips curled into the faintest smile. "Talk to the babysitter." That sent a small chill through me. His voice was too calm for a 9-year-old. I forced a laugh. "Well, I guess we're talking now." He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hands. "Do you live close by?" Yeah, not too far." "Do you live alone?" I raised an eyebrow. "I'm 16. I live with my parents." He nodded slowly, like he was storing the information away. For the rest of the night, the questions kept coming. Did I have a boyfriend? What time did I go to bed? Did I ever wake up and feel like someone was watching me? That last one made my skin crawl. I finally said, "Leo, that's kind of a creepy question." He just grinned. "You think so?" It was only 8:30, but I told him it was bedtime. He argued at first, saying he wasn't tired, but I insisted. Eventually, he trudged upstairs and I tucked him into bed. "Good night," I said, pulling the blanket up. He stared at me in the dim light and whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" I asked. He turned on his side, facing the wall. "Nothing. Good night." I walked out of his room, uneasy, but telling myself kids say weird things all the time. Downstairs, I settled on the couch, scrolling on my phone to pass the time. That's when I noticed the house felt too quiet. Then I heard it, a soft creak from upstairs like footsteps. I told myself Leo was probably getting water or going to the bathroom. Still, I crept up the stairs to check. The hallway was dark, but his bedroom door was open now. When I peeked inside, the bed was empty. "Leo?" I whispered. No answer. I checked the bathroom, the other bedrooms, even the closet. Nothing. Panic started building in my chest. Finally, I spotted him standing at the end of the hallway, halfway hidden in the shadows. "Leo, what are you doing out of bed?" I snapped, my voice shaking a little. He tilted his head. "I just wanted to see what you'd do if I wasn't where you left me." I clenched my jaw. "That's not funny. Go back to bed." He smiled again, but didn't argue. He walked past me, slow and deliberate, brushing against my arm as he went. His skin was ice cold. After I tucked him back in, I shut the door this time. When I got back downstairs, I sat on the couch, hugging a pillow, trying to shake the feeling crawling under my skin. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You look scared." My heart skipped. I looked around the empty living room, then at the front door, which was locked. Another text. "Don't worry, I like it." I typed back quickly. "Who is this?" No reply. I ran upstairs, burst into Leo's room, and saw him lying there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. His phone was on the nightstand, screen glowing. I snatched it up and checked. The number matched the one that had texted me. My hands shook. "Why are you texting me from your phone?" He slowly turned his head to face me. "Because I wanted to know what you'd say if I wasn't in the room." That was it. I called his mom. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. His dad's number went straight to voicemail. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just leave. But every second in that house felt wrong. When I went back downstairs, Leo was there again, sitting on the couch this time. I swear I hadn't heard him come down. "You shouldn't tell my parents," he said softly. I swallowed hard. "Why not?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Because then I'll have to tell them your secret." My blood went cold. "What secret?" He smiled. "I don't know yet, but I'll find one." Something in his eyes told me he meant it. The rest of the night dragged like a nightmare. I stayed on edge, keeping distance between us, pretending to watch TV while my heart pounded. Leo sat near me the whole time, silent, just watching. When his parents finally came home close to midnight, I bolted for the door. Mrs. Jacobs thanked me, asking how everything went. I forced a smile and said, "Fine," because what was I supposed to say? That her 9-year-old son scared the hell out of me? As I walked down the driveway, I pulled out my phone. Another text from the same number lit up the screen. "I'll see you soon." That was 2 months ago. Since then, I've gotten random texts at night from unknown numbers, sometimes just one word: watching. Sometimes pictures of my street, blurry but unmistakable. I haven't told anyone because I'm not even sure they'd believe me. But every time my phone buzzes after dark, my chest tightens with the same question. What if Leo wasn't joking when he said I shouldn't have come there? I was 18 the summer I started babysitting again. It wasn't new to me. I'd done plenty of jobs for neighbors in middle school and high school, but this time felt different. I was about to start college in the fall, and I needed money for gas, books, and honestly just to feel like I wasn't asking my parents for every little thing. Most families around town already had sitters they trusted, so I got lucky when my mom's coworker passed my name to a couple who had just moved into one of those new modern houses on the edge of Elkhart. Mark and Sarah. They had 2 kids, Leo, who was 10, and Mia, who was 6. They wanted someone for one Saturday night while they went to a dinner event. When Sarah called, she sounded nice, if a little rushed. She said, "The house is easy to find. Just follow the long drive past the woods. It's the only one out there." I didn't think much about that line until later. When I pulled up that night, my first thought was that the place didn't look real. The house sat back from the road, all glass and sharp corners, like the pictures you see on an architecture blog, floor-to-ceiling windows everywhere, lights glowing inside like a display. Beautiful, sure, but also exposed. Anyone could stand outside and see everything. Mark and Sarah were dressed up like they belonged in one of those lifestyle magazines. He wore a black suit. She had a simple but expensive-looking dress. They both smiled a little too wide. The kind of smile that says, "We're in a hurry, but trying not to show it." Inside, the house was spotless. White walls, steel counters, everything sleek and minimal. The kids came running down the hall. Leo was serious-looking, hair a little messy like he'd been reading or gaming. Mia was already talking before she reached me, telling me her stuffed unicorn's name was Sparkles. Sarah gave me a long list of instructions, more detailed than I'd ever gotten from any parent. Bedtime routines, snack portions, screen time rules, even how to adjust the smart thermostat. She kept circling back to one thing, though. "Cell service is spotty out here. If you need us, use the landline, it's reliable." Mark added, "The locks and lights are all on the smart system. Just use the panel by the door if you need to change anything." I nodded like it was all normal, but the way they said it, like they needed me to memorize it, stuck in my head. By the time they left, I was standing with Leo and Mia in this giant glass living room, watching their parents' car roll down the drive until the trees swallowed the headlights. The house went quiet. Too quiet for how big it was. The first couple hours were fine. We played Uno, watched part of a movie, and had pizza. The kids were good, better than most I'd watched. Around 9, I got Mia ready for bed while Leo brushed his teeth. I was tucking her in when I noticed movement through the window across from her bed. Just a shape, standing near the tree line, still as stone. I leaned closer, trying to make out who it was. It looked like Mark. Same suit, same height, even the way he held his shoulders. He was just standing there, facing the house. I waved. No reaction. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mark's number. "Just stopped for gas, everything okay?" I froze, looked back at the window. The figure was gone. My stomach tightened, but I didn't want to freak out the kids. I kissed Mia's forehead, turned out the light, and went to find Leo. I tried to shake it off, but half an hour later it happened again. I was in the kitchen rinsing dishes when I heard tapping. Sharp, frantic. I turned and saw Sarah at the sliding patio doors, slamming her hand against the glass. Her mouth moved fast, eyes wide with panic. I couldn't hear her, but I could read the words. "Let me in." I was halfway across the room before something stopped me. The landline rang. I grabbed it. "Hello?" "Hi, Lena, it's Sarah, just checking in. We're about an hour away. Kids doing okay?" Her voice was calm, casual. I turned, staring at the patio. The glass was empty. No one there. I managed to answer, "Yeah, they're fine," and hung up quick. My hands were shaking so bad I had to grip the counter. I didn't want to scare Leo, but he noticed me pacing. He asked, "Did you see them too?" I froze. "See who?" He lowered his voice. "The copycats. Sometimes they come when mom and dad are gone. They look like them, but their faces are stretchy." Hearing that from a 10-year-old made my blood run cold. I told him it was just shadows, but he didn't look convinced. By 10, the house wasn't calm anymore. The smart lights flickered, snapping off and on without me touching the panel. The locks on the doors clicked open, then shut again. At one point, every window lit up with a figure pressed close to the glass. Some looked like Mark, some like Sarah, a few like twisted versions of Leo and Mia, their eyes too wide, mouths stretched wrong, and all of them were saying my name, not yelling, just calmly, over and over. Lena, Lena, Lena. Mia started crying. Leo just stared at the floor like he'd been through this before. I pulled them both into the hallway away from the glass. My heart was racing so hard I thought I'd throw up. Then the landline rang again. I almost didn't answer, but the kids were watching me. Lena, it's Mark. We're in the driveway. Open the door. Hurry. His voice was panicked, desperate. At the same time, my phone buzzed. A text from Mark's number, all jumbled but readable. Don't trust the phone. It can talk. I dropped the receiver like it burned me. The front door handle jiggled. Someone slammed against it, rattling the smart lock. Mia screamed. I hit the panel and locked every door, every window, all at once. The system beeped, lights flickered, then steadied. The banging stopped. We sat in the hallway for what felt like hours. I held both kids, whispering that it was fine, even though I didn't believe it. When the parents' car finally pulled up for real, I didn't move until I saw both of them step inside, talking, laughing, completely normal. No panic, no copies. I didn't tell them what happened. How could I? They paid me in cash, thanked me, said, "Hope the kids weren't too much trouble." I drove home with my chest tight, checking every mirror, every shadow. It's been months, but I still can't relax near windows. Every time my phone rings, I hesitate before answering. Sometimes, late at night, I'll catch my reflection in the glass and swear for half a second it moved before I did. And the worst part? I keep wondering if I brought something back with me. I wasn't supposed to babysit that night. My plan was to hang out with friends at the arcade until late, maybe sneak into a midnight movie. But Emma's parents, the Carsons, called me around 4 p.m. sounding a little stressed. Their usual sitter had canceled at the last minute. "Can you come over tonight just for a few hours?" Mrs. Carson asked. Emma's been restless. She's 10, a smart kid, and I think she just needs someone patient. I hesitated. I'd babysat a few times before, but mostly easy stuff. TV, snacks, board games. Emma was supposed to be quiet. "Sure," I said. I figured it would be simple enough and the money was decent. The Carsons lived in a big house at the end of a quiet suburban street in Maplewood. It had a wide front porch, lots of windows, and a fenced backyard. From the outside, it seemed ordinary, even comforting. But there was something about the way the trees leaned close to the house, shadows stretching over the lawn, that made me pause. I shook it off as me overthinking. Emma answered the door. She was small, thin, with straight blonde hair that framed a sharp, serious face. Her eyes studied me for a moment before she nodded. "You're the sitter," she said. No smile, just that intense stare that made my stomach twist for a second. "Yep, I'm Jake," I said, offering my hand. She didn't take it. "Ready for a quiet evening?" "I guess," she muttered. Then she walked past me into the living room. The house smelled faintly of cleaning spray and cookies, like the Carsons tried to make it cozy. Emma went straight to the couch and started building a complicated tower with wooden blocks. I sat down nearby. "So, what do you want to do tonight?" I asked casually. She paused, looking at me carefully. "Do you think someone could be watching the house?" I blinked. "Watching? Like a neighbor?" "No," she said, her voice calm, matter-of-fact. "Someone from outside. Someone who wants to know what happens in here." I laughed, nervously. "That's a little specific." "No, I don't think so." She smiled faintly, the first expression I'd seen that looked anything like amusement. "Good. I wanted to tell you a story about the man who comes sometimes." I thought it was a joke at first. Kids tell weird stories all the time. But the way she said it, calm, confident, made me pause. She spoke slowly, detailing a man who would watch houses from the streets, trying to learn about the people inside. He didn't break in. He just wanted to know what families did. She added that sometimes he left little things behind like coins or small toys. I forced a smile, playing along. And does he leave gifts often? She nodded seriously. He likes me. I keep them for him. For the first hour, everything seemed normal. We built block towers, played a little tablet game, and had a small snack she prepared herself: apple slices, crackers, and peanut butter. I started to relax, thinking the story was just her overactive imagination. Then the doorbell rang. I froze for a moment, and Emma didn't react at all. "Expecting someone?" I asked. She shook her head. "No." I went to the door and opened it. Nobody there. Just a small coin sitting on the welcome mat. I picked it up, heart thumping. "He leaves gifts," Emma said casually. "See? He likes you." I swallowed hard. Maybe she had planted it herself. Maybe one of the neighbors dropped it. But something about her tone, the way she said it like it was normal, made me uneasy. A little while later, I heard faint tapping from one of the upstairs windows. I got up to check. The window was locked, the screen closed. No wind, no one outside. I stepped back and froze. Then I noticed another coin, this time on the windowsill, inside the house. I looked at Emma. She was still sitting on the couch, building a tower, watching me carefully. "How did you?" I began. She shrugged. "He likes to show you things. You don't need to see him." My stomach twisted. I didn't know if she was joking, lying, or telling the truth. I tried to keep my voice steady. "All right, let's play a game downstairs." As I walked toward the basement, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Do you like the gifts?" I froze, staring at the screen. "Emma, who's texting me?" She looked at me with the same calm expression. "That's him. He wanted you to know I'm telling the truth." I shook my head. "Emma, this isn't funny." She didn't answer, just kept stacking blocks. By now, my anxiety was climbing. Every sound, the creak of the floors, the hum of the fridge, the tapping of the wind against the windows, felt magnified. I tried calling her parents. Busy signal. I texted them. No response. I decided to go upstairs and check the bedrooms, thinking I'd make sure she wasn't playing a prank or hiding something. The hallway smelled faintly of lavender. I passed her room and noticed something that made my stomach drop. A small notebook on the floor with pages torn out. I picked it up. The pages had been filled with drawings. People standing outside the house, shadows in the corners, someone peeking through windows, and in tiny letters at the bottom of one page, "Jake." I looked at Emma. She was watching me, expression calm. "I draw things I see," she said. "I keep track." I took a deep breath. "Emma, that's not... Okay, you're scaring me." "I know," she said simply. The rest of the evening was a blur. The lights flickered once, then went out entirely. I grabbed a flashlight and went room to room. Shadows seemed to stretch at the edges of my vision. I thought I heard someone breathing outside the back door. I ran to check. Nobody. Then I found the back door unlocked. I was sure I had locked it. My pulse was racing. I called 911 and explained quickly. Someone, maybe a kid playing a prank or a stranger, is messing with the house. I don't know if anyone is inside. I'm babysitting. The dispatcher asked me to stay calm, lock doors, and keep Emma close. I went upstairs. She followed, stepping lightly, almost like a shadow herself. She didn't speak. The police arrived after what felt like forever. They checked the house from top to bottom. No signs of forced entry. Nothing out of place, except for the coins and the notebook. Emma sat on her bed, playing quietly with a few of the coins, humming under her breath. When the officers left, her parents finally returned. They looked tired, distracted, but gave me a quick, uneasy smile. "Thanks for handling her," Mrs. Carson said. "She's a handful, but you did fine." I handed over the coins. "She's been leaving these around," I said. Mr. Carson glanced at them, then away. Oh, she likes little collections. Don't worry about it. Later, I couldn't stop thinking. Had Emma orchestrated the whole thing herself? Had she been testing me, seeing how far she could push? Or had someone been watching the house, sending messages, leaving coins to make it seem like her game? I checked my phone again. Another text. Unknown number. Good job tonight, you were careful. My stomach turned. Weeks later, I passed the Carsons' house on my way home. Emma waved from the porch, smiling that same calm, intense look. I waved back, forcing a smile. Even now, months later, I still think about that night. The notebook, the coins, the texts. Everything seemed so ordinary at first, just a kid and her imagination. But the way she watched me, the little ways she controlled the situation, the things she seemed to know, made me realize how easily someone can twist the ordinary into something deeply, quietly threatening. I never babysat for her again. And sometimes when I'm walking alone or hear a knock at the door, I think of her. And I wonder, was it all just a game she played? Or was someone else really watching the house and using her to do it? I started babysitting the summer I turned 19, mostly because my car was held together with duct tape and a prayer. The engine made a sound like a bag of rocks in a blender, and the mechanic said it needed a whole new something or other that cost more than I'd made all last year. So I took any job I could get. I figured watching a couple of kids for a few hours was easy money. I had no idea that some houses, and the families in them, come with rules you don't find on any job listing. That's how I ended up at the Carter farm on a Friday night. It was way out on Blackwood Lane, a road that seemed to get narrower and darker the further you drove. The house was this big old thing made of dark wood, with a porch that wrapped around the front. It looked like it had been there forever, settled deep into the land. In the fading light, I could see strange, worn-down symbols carved into the fence posts. They looked like kids' drawings, but old. Really old. Mr. Carter, Ben, answered the door before I could even knock. He was a big guy with a serious face, already holding his car keys. "You must be Caleb. Come on in, we're running late." The inside of the house felt just as old as the outside. The floorboards creaked under my feet, and the air smelled like wood smoke and something else, something earthy. His wife, Clara, was rushing around, grabbing a purse and giving last-minute instructions. She had a bright, nervous smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "The kids are Finn and Ivy," Ben said, pointing to the living room where a boy was building a Lego spaceship and a little girl was coloring. "Finn's 8, Ivy's 5, they've had dinner, bedtime is 9, no arguments. Our number is on the fridge, the Wi-Fi password is Harvest784. It all seemed pretty standard. Then, as he was stepping out onto the porch, Ben turned back. His expression got even more serious. "One more thing, Caleb." "Yeah?" "When it gets fully dark, I want you to close all the curtains, everyone. And if you see a man standing out by the big oak tree at the edge of the yard, and don't worry about it." I blinked. "A man?" "Just someone who walks the property sometimes. He's harmless, but it's important you don't acknowledge him. Don't wave, don't go out there, and whatever you do, don't look him directly in the eye if you see him through a window. Just ignore him. He'll go away by morning." He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was telling me to make sure the kids brushed their teeth. I just stood there for a second, processing. Okay, sure." Clara gave me that tight smile again. "It's just an old country thing. Don't let it spook you. There's a plate on the counter for you too. A little thank you." And with that, they were gone, their car crunching down the gravel driveway. The silence they left behind felt heavy. I locked the door and turned around. Finn was standing in the hallway watching me. He had the same solemn look as his dad. "You heard the rule, right?" he asked. "The rule about the man in the yard?" I tried to sound casual, like this was a totally normal conversation. Finn nodded. "The yard man. He's always there at night." You just have to leave him alone." Then he went back to his Legos, as if he'd just explained why the sky is blue. For the first couple of hours, everything was fine. We played a board game. I helped Ivy with a puzzle. But as the sun went down, the big windows turned black and I started to feel watched. It was stupid, I told myself. Just my imagination. But I went around and closed all the heavy curtains. Just like Ben said. Around 8, Finn went to the kitchen and came back with a small wooden plate. On it was a single perfect cookie and a glass of milk. "This is for the yard man," he said, his voice completely normal. "What?" "Mom leaves it for him. You have to put it on the back porch step before you go to bed, so he knows we're being respectful." A cold little knot tightened in my stomach. This was getting weird. Really weird. It wasn't just a weird dad instruction. The whole family was in on it. I took the plate from him. "Okay, buddy, I'll take care of it later." But I didn't. I put the plate back on the counter. This was too strange. I wasn't going to participate in some creepy ritual. I was a rational guy. I believed in things I could see and touch. That's when my curiosity got the better of me. I had to see for myself. I walked over to the big window in the dining room and carefully pushed the curtain aside just an inch, peering out into the dark yard. And he was there. A tall, thin figure, just standing under the big oak tree. He was too far away to see any details, just a dark shape against the even darker woods behind him. My heart started thumping hard in my chest. So it was real. There was actually someone out there. A part of me, the logical part, was screaming to close the curtain and walk away. But a bigger part, the part that needed to prove this was all nonsense, took over. I wanted to see his face. I wanted to prove he was just some random guy, maybe a neighbor who liked to stare at trees. I grabbed the big flashlight from the counter, the heavy metal one. I went back to the window, my hand shaking a little. I took a deep breath, pulled the curtain open wider and clicked on the flashlight, aiming the bright beam directly at the figure. The light hit him, illuminating a long, dark coat and a pale, expressionless face. And then, slowly, very slowly, the man turned his head and looked right back at me. His eyes seemed to catch the light, reflecting it back like an animal's. It wasn't a friendly look. It wasn't an angry look. It was just empty. But it felt focused. On me. I dropped the curtain like it was on fire, my whole body going cold. I'd broken the rule. I'd looked. For a minute, nothing happened. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then Finn came into the room. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the curtain. His face was pale. "You looked at him," he whispered. It wasn't a question. Before I could answer, the house seemed to let out a sigh. The lights in the kitchen flickered once, then went back to normal. A sudden chill swept through the room, making the hairs on my arms stand up. From the corner of the living room, the family dog, a big old Labrador who had been sleeping peacefully all night, lifted its head and let out a low, rumbling growl at the empty space near the front door. "You shouldn't have done that," Finn said, his voice trembling. "Now he's upset." That's when we heard it. A soft knock on the front door. It wasn't loud or angry. It was polite, patient, like someone was gently asking to be let in. Ivy came out of her room, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "He wants to come in now," she said, her eyes wide. "Because you looked." The knocking came again, a little louder this time. Knock, knock, knock. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't my imagination. I had done the one thing I was told not to do, and now something was on the porch. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. No service. Of course. Out here in the middle of nowhere. I thought about calling the police. But what would I say? "Hello? A man is knocking on the door after I shone a light in his face?" It sounded insane. And Ben's words echoed in my head. "He's harmless if you follow the rules." I had broken the rules. The knocking stopped. For a long moment, there was only silence. I held my breath listening. Maybe he'd gone away. Then, a new sound started. A slow, dragging scrape along the side of the house, like a hand or a branch being pulled against the wooden siding. It moved from the front, down the side, towards the back door. I grabbed both kids. Upstairs, now. We ran up to Finn's room, the one farthest from the front of the house. I locked the door and pushed his dresser in front of it. It was probably useless, but it made me feel a little better. We sat there in the dark, huddled together, listening. The scraping stopped. Then we heard the back door handle jiggle. Gently. Like someone was testing it. I'd locked it, I was sure I'd locked it. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed in my hand. A text message. The screen lit up the dark room. It was from Clara Carter. Caleb, is everything okay? The motion sensor light on the back porch just came on. I stared at the words. The motion sensor. He was right there at the back door. My fingers fumbled as I typed a reply. There's a man here. He's trying to get in. Her response was immediate. What did you do, Caleb? The question felt like a punch to the gut. She didn't ask who it was. She asked what I had done. I shined a light at him. I typed back, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hit the letters. There was a long pause. The only sound was Ivy's quiet sniffles. Then 3 dots appeared, blinking. Her message came through. Put the offering on the porch. Now. Maybe it's not too late. The knocking started again, this time on the back door. It was louder, more insistent. I looked at the 2 terrified kids clinging to me. I had no choice. I had to play along with their crazy ritual. I slowly moved the dresser, unlocked the door, and crept downstairs alone. The house was freezing now. I grabbed the plate with the cookie and milk from the counter. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I unlocked the back door, my breath fogging in the cold air. I didn't look out. I just shoved the plate onto the porch step, slammed the door shut and locked it again, leaning against it, my legs feeling like jelly. The knocking stopped. I waited, listening. Nothing. I crept to the window and dared to peek through the curtain. The plate was there on the step, the glass of milk beside it. The yard was empty. The man was gone. The Carters got home an hour later. They didn't ask any questions. Ben just walked straight to the back door, looked out, and nodded to himself when he saw the empty plate. Clara hurried the kids to bed without a word to me. As I was leaving, Ben stopped me at the door. He handed me my cash, his face unreadable. "You'll know for next time," he said. There wasn't going to be a next time. I never went back. I drove home in the dark, jumping at every shadow. I still think about that night. I never found out who the yard man was, a homeless person, a mentally ill neighbor the family had some strange understanding with, or something else entirely. But the worst part, the part that keeps me up sometimes, isn't the man himself. It's the Carters. It's the fact that a whole family, a normal-seeming family, lives with that. They've made their peace with it. They have rules and offerings, and they just go on with their lives, knowing that something walks their property at night. They knew what would happen if I broke the rule, and they still left me there. That's the real horror. It's not the monster outside. It's the quiet, everyday agreement that keeps the monster calm, and I still don't know what the price of that agreement really is. I used to think desperation made for ugly stories, but I never expected mine to begin in a sunlit Hartford cafe, the day I scrolled through a babysitting forum and found that ad. I was 22, had dropped out of art school 6 months earlier, couch surfing at my cousin Jaden's and jobless except for odd errands. Depression and debt had finally chased me away from New Haven School of Art. Jaden, patient but firm, gave me an ultimatum: contribute or go. That morning, bleary-eyed, I accepted the gig without a second thought. 2 years old, 1 flat rate, cameras, no problem. I needed that money. The building at 914 Elwood Terrace looked nice. Polished lobby, working elevator, people coming and going in business attire. But when I stepped into apartment 3B at 6 p.m., the place felt off. It was too white, too clean, like a showroom. The playpen was empty, no toys, no pictures, no art supplies, only parenting manuals and matching dust jackets. There wasn't so much as a trace of lived-in warmth. "Hi, I'm Melinda," she said, curt and businesslike. She pointed to a mounted tablet. "He's already fed. Probably will sleep. Just watch the monitor. Cameras are in every room. I'll be back by midnight." The door clicked shut so hard it rattled the walls. I settled into the couch with tea and logged into Wi-Fi. Darkness filtered in through the sheer curtains. I paced half-heartedly, trying to read or scroll TikToks while glancing at the tablet. Baby and nursery, living room, kitchen. That was normal. But at 7:40, the screen blinked, switching to a feed labeled storage room. I'd never entered such a room. The image was dim, grainy, and I swear I saw a hand holding a belt buckle. Then it disappeared. My heart thumped. I paused my tea and walked toward the kitchen. Sure enough, a door hidden behind a curtain, narrow, utilitarian, and locked tight. A bleach odor leaked through the crack. I poked the door. No way in. I crept back to the couch. New message on the tablet. "Do not open that door again." I swallowed. I tried calling Melinda, straight to voicemail. My cousin Jaden insisted I leave at once. I shook my head. Kieran was alone, asleep. I stayed, frozen, feeling the air tighten around me. At 9:15, the monitor flickered again. The storage feed reappeared. A hunched figure moved there, pacing, talking under its breath. I froze. Couldn't make out words. Then I heard a click. I instinctively stood, grabbed Kieran from his crib, and sprinted to the bathroom, shutting the door behind us. Locked it. I cradled him close. He stirred, gibbered in sleep, and pressed into me. I texted 911 explaining the situation. My fingers trembled. I waited on bathroom tile, listening. Silence outside the door except my own ragged breathing and the faint whimper of the baby. The tablet feed vanished entirely. I dared not move. My phone buzzed. "Don't open that door." I did not send that text. I felt dried cold. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, pacing nearer the bedroom. A slammed door? Or just closing? Panic slammed in again. I rocked Kieran, whispering nonsense about cartoons, took deep breaths. Nothing happened for minutes that nearly drowned me in terror. Then faint voices, male, muffled. Then a knock at the front door. "Police, Miss Monroe." My flat chest constricted. I set Kieran down quietly, wiped tears. I unlocked door calmly. 2 officers stepped in, badges shining. I told them everything. The hidden door, the monitor, the message, the pacing figure. They checked the storage door. It was open now. Empty. Just a rusted chair, shredded manuals, bare cot, no cameras inside. The officers exchanged looks. One ran a background check, found no records of a caretaker. Melinda was unreachable. I watched as they called down to dispatch. The landlord had previously authorized a soundproofed storage room but claimed ignorance of its use. They escorted me out with Kieran in a sling. I clutched my belongings, knees wobbling. Outside, I called Jaden. As we talked, police cars returned to the building but no arrests. A week later, I learned that Melinda's brother had recently left a psychiatric facility and vanished. The landlord confirmed Melinda requested a sealed, soundproofed room a few weeks before. The encrypted tablet feed existed. They discovered it wiped clean that night. I tried to sleep for the next few nights. I couldn't. I got therapy again. I quit babysitting. I drove past Elwood Terrace months later and stopped outside. I stared through the lobby door. I thought of the room behind that hidden door. My chest tightened. The memory still felt alive. Writing my story now months later, I feel the sharp sting of regret, relief, and lingering questions. How many people had been in that storage room? What happened to that brother? Why did Melinda seek a sitter I barely knew? I replay the night endlessly in my head. The sterile furnishings, the abrupt instructions, the tablet feed glitch that revealed a room not in the official layout, the cryptic message, "Do not open that door again," the pacing figure. I was alone except for that monitor. Therapy helped untangle some of my guilt. I should have run immediately, but I'd promised to care for a child. It felt like my only connection, even in my drifting state. I had reason to stay, responsibility, empathy, professional habit. It almost killed me. Coming out of that, I changed. First, no more last-minute strangers. No more trusting without questions. I started checking IDs, talking to parents repeatedly. If something felt off in a job listing or house environment, I walked away. Professionally, I found work in a small gallery downtown. It's not art school, but it's something creative. I save enough to get my own place. I still couch surf on rare nights if I'm between shifts, but intentionally. I gained boundaries, personal and professional. I often wonder about trust. It's the currency of babysitting, and I spent mine too quickly that night. How do you rebuild? I started using references, verifying a family before taking jobs. I ask for photos of the space. I request to see who lives there. It's smart and practical, not paranoid. Whenever I hear of a missing person or a hidden room in a case online, my pulse quickens. I write emails to mental health advocates, share my story anonymously, hoping to raise awareness about vulnerable gatekeeping and caregiving jobs. Strangers present as nice people. They claim references. They may bring money, but they also may hide secrets. I began volunteering at a hotline for babysitters in uneasy gigs. I speak about intuition, how to trust it and act. I tell them, no gig is worth risking your safety. You are allowed to say no, even when it hurts. I recount my night in Hartford, the sterile setting, the abrupt instructions, the temp monitoring setup with unlogged feeds, the hidden door, the message. Sometimes volunteers tell me they got jobs suffocatingly quiet like that. No toys, no family pictures, only empty rooms. They walk away. They report suspicious listings. One of them found a hidden basement door and canceled the shift. My heart pounds when they share. They saved themselves. Here's what I know now. Danger often comes wrapped in normality. A fresh building, a reasonable rate, a friendly single mom who must rush. They lure you in. If you ignore the little signs, a locked room, cryptic messages, a second video feed, you risk your intuition. I recovered. I moved into my own apartment. I keep art supplies again. I open paint tubes, draw with honest strokes. I teach children at a community art program. I talk about safety, boundaries, and listening to the gut fear when it whispers. My drive back to Hartford one spring afternoon, I passed Elwood Terrace again. I stopped for longer, stared at apartment 3B, and wondered if another sitter answered that forum ad. I hoped she asked questions. I hoped she left. Now I tell my younger self, you did everything you could under pressure. You listened and you saved yourself and that baby. You set a standard. Use it always. The story isn't just scary. It's a reminder that intuition, boundaries, and questioning the surface protect us. Normality can conceal danger and trust must be earned, not assumed. If something feels wrong, no matter how polite or convenient, it likely is. Trust yourself first. It was the first real summer break I'd had in years, and I was already tired of it. After finishing a grueling sophomore year at college and juggling therapy sessions for my anxiety, I'd come back home to Millhaven expecting some quiet. My parents had other ideas. Do something productive, or they said, wait, get a job, volunteer, anything. I just wanted to breathe. So when my old high school English teacher, Mrs. Whitaker, texted and asked if I could babysit her son one afternoon into the evening, I said yes, more out of guilt than interest. I remembered Mrs. Whitaker being the kind of teacher who made you feel like your words mattered. She was sharp, soft-spoken, Always had her hair pulled back like she was in a rush to get somewhere. Her message said she'd be at a school board dinner and wouldn't be home until after 11. Nolan's quiet and easy. Just keep an eye on him. She offered $120. I accepted immediately. The drive out to their house was longer than I remembered. About 20 minutes from town, down a road with no streetlights and thick forest on both sides. Brookridge Lane was more of a gravel driveway than a proper street, with only a few houses spaced far apart. Hers sat at the very end, a pale blue two-story tucked between dark trees and silence. Inside, the house was spotless. Too spotless. The floors gleamed, the furniture was minimal and modern, and every surface looked freshly polished. There were no family photos, no crayon drawings, nothing taped to the fridge. It didn't feel like a house with a kid in it. Nolan was sitting on the floor in the den when I arrived. He looked up, nodded, and went right back to playing with some wooden animal figures. "Hi," I said, dropping my bag by the couch. "I'm Haley." He didn't respond. He wasn't rude, just distant. Like I was interrupting a dream he didn't want to wake up from. Mrs. Whitaker gave me a quick rundown. Dinner was in the fridge, bedtime by 9, and Nolan didn't need much supervision. Then she left. No hug for Nolan, no wave, just her keys jingling as she pulled the front door shut behind her. For a while, everything was normal. I made Nolan a grilled cheese. We played a quiet card game, and then he sat and watched a dinosaur documentary while I read emails on my phone. But by 6 o'clock, I started noticing things. Small, odd things. Nolan wouldn't go near the guest room at the end of the hall. He stiffened every time I walked past it. "That's not my room," he whispered once. "She doesn't like us in there." I blinked. "Who?" He didn't answer, just stared past me like someone was standing behind me. I tried to shrug it off. Kids have imaginary friends or fears. It wasn't that weird, but something about the way he said it, like he wasn't afraid of being punished but afraid of being seen, made my skin crawl. At 7:10, I was in the kitchen getting a glass of water when I heard it. The front door. It opened, then closed, quick and soft. I walked out fast. "Hello?" No answer. I checked the door. Locked. But something had changed. A small porcelain rabbit that had been on a table by the front window was now sitting at the top of the stairs. I looked at Nolan. He was on the couch, staring at the rabbit like he recognized it. "She's coming soon," he said, barely above a whisper. "That means, who's she?" I asked. But he just shook his head, eyes wide. I tried texting Mrs. Whitaker, but my message wouldn't send. No bars. That made no sense. I had full signal earlier. I tried brushing it off. Maybe the rabbit had already been moved. Maybe I was letting my mind race. I was tired and this house was too quiet. I turned on the TV, hoping noise would help. Nolan didn't protest when I let him lay on the living room floor with a blanket. "Can I keep it on while I fall asleep?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, ruffling his hair. "Of course." Before I left him to rest, he grabbed my wrist until I screamed. Last time she came, she whispered my name. I froze. "Nolan, who are you talking about?" He didn't say anything else. He just pulled the blanket up to his chin and stared at the screen. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed to check the guest room. I hesitated outside the door for a few minutes, debating whether it was worth it. Then I opened it. The room was plain, dusty blue curtains, an unused twin bed, empty shelves. But there was a baby monitor on the dresser, turned on. I picked it up. It wasn't the kind that connected to a phone app. It was old, analog. And the receiver part, the one that should be with the parent, was missing. I set it back down, heart thumping. Then the landline rang. I hadn't even noticed the old phone on the hallway table. I picked it up. "Hello?" At first, just static. Then a voice, a woman's voice. "You shouldn't be in her house." I slammed the phone down. I turned, walked back toward the living room, but stopped short. There were wet footprints on the floor. They started at the back door and led up the stairs. I ran to Nolan. He was asleep, thank God. The footprints stopped at his blanket. I scooped him up, grabbed my keys, and bolted out the front door barefoot. I left everything behind. My phone, my shoes, my bag. I just drove. The police station was about 10 minutes away. I burst in, carrying Nolan, shaking. I told them everything. They looked at me like I was speaking another language, until I mentioned the baby monitor and the footprints. An officer drove us back to the house. By the time we got there, the footprints were gone. The baby monitor was still there, but now it was playing something else. A looped recording of Nolan talking in his sleep. I listened to it. I heard him say, faint, female, low, whispering his name. Please stop whispering, over and over again. Then the voice. They searched the house. No sign of forced entry. Nothing broken. No intruder. When they finally reached Mrs. Whitaker, she sounded shaken but not surprised. The guest room, she said, used to be my sister's. She passed away there. And ever since, we've had to respect the rules of the house. That was it. I never went back. I didn't even collect the money. Jaden, the officer who drove us back, brought my stuff to the station the next day. I quit babysitting completely. The nightmares still come sometimes. Mostly the sound of that landline ringing, or Nolan's voice asking me to turn the TV up louder. People always say you can explain things away. Stress, fatigue, overactive imagination. I tried, but I knew what I saw, what I felt. That house didn't want us there. I ended up writing a paper about it in one of my psych classes. Not the ghost part, but how trauma lingers in spaces. How silence can be a warning. How kids sometimes know what adults refuse to see. I hope Nolan's okay. I hope Mrs. Whitaker's found peace. But I'll never forget what happened on Brook Ridge Lane. And I'll never ignore my instincts again. Never ignore the small signs. What feels off, what doesn't make sense. The whispers your mind tries to explain away. Whether it's danger, trauma, or something we can't name, your instincts are often the loudest truth in a quiet room. I always knew college wouldn't be easy. I'd worked hard to get into the criminal justice program, even harder to earn a partial scholarship. But when half of it got revoked after a GPA slip, I had no choice. I started babysitting on weekends just to scrape by. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than food service, and I was decent with kids. That's how I ended up at 46 Hartley Way on a chilly March evening. Cedar Junction is the kind of Oregon town where everything shuts down by 8 p.m. The Harper's place sat on the edge of the woods, quiet and rustic. A wraparound porch, pine trees tall enough to block the moonlight. No neighbors in sight. The job had come through a friend of a friend. Their usual sitter canceled last minute and I needed the cash. When I got there, Mr. Harper met me at the door with tired eyes and a firm handshake. "Thanks for coming on short notice," he said, stepping aside so I could enter. Mrs. Harper was already getting her coat on. She handed me a list. Dinner in the fridge, bedtime at 8:30, TV okay, but no sugar snacks. The usual stuff. Then Mr. Harper held out a beat-up black walkie-talkie. "Keep this on you," he said. "We don't get service out here." I looked at it, confused. "You mean for emergencies?" He paused like he didn't want to explain. "The baby monitor's busted, and cell phones don't work well past the trees. We've just used this. It's reliable." I should have asked more questions, but I didn't. By 7:30, I had Mason fed and parked on the couch watching cartoons. He was a quiet little guy, all soft curls and wide eyes. The kind of kid that always looks like he's trying to figure out what adults are hiding. When I told him it was almost bedtime, he nodded obediently, but before heading down the hall, he said something that stopped me. "If the walkie-talkie whispers, don't answer. Mommy says the man doesn't like when you talk back." I blinked. "What man?" He just smiled at me like it was a joke I wasn't in on. "The one in the trees." I laughed, nervously. "Okay, buddy, bedtime." I tucked him in, left a little nightlight on, and headed back to the living room. I turned on the walkie-talkie like they asked, then opened my laptop to work on some reading for class. The house was so still it made my own breathing sound loud. At 9:12, the walkie-talkie crackled. Static buzzed through, followed by a slow, steady sound. Breathing. Deep. Raspy. Too human to mistake. I leaned forward, pressed the talk button. Hello? Nothing. Then, a whisper. So low I barely caught it. You're not his mother. My heart thudded against my ribs. I stared at the device in my hand, half expecting it to be hot from whatever just came through. I scanned the room. Mason's bedroom door was shut. The house was still silent. Too silent. I shook it off. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone was screwing around with old frequencies. I mean, who still uses walkie-talkies anyway? At 10:15, the voice came back. Just static at first, then a whisper. A long, stretched-out version of the boy's name. My son, my son. That was enough. I unplugged the thing and shoved it in my bag. It buzzed again, even without power. I turned it off manually and tried to distract myself with a podcast. Something funny. Something loud. But I kept hearing faint creaks from upstairs. I told myself it was just the house settling. Old beams, cold air. Totally normal. But when I heard the knock, soft, deliberate, 3 short taps, it came from inside the house. Not the front door. From the closet near the back hallway. I grabbed the flashlight the Harpers left by the door and crept toward it. The air was colder by that side of the house. I opened the door slowly, the beam of light shaking in my hand. Just coats, a few boots. But the smell hit me. Damp wood, mildew, and something metallic. Like rust. Or blood. I turned to leave and noticed something that hadn't been there before. Another walkie-talkie, sitting right on the windowsill. Its red power light blinking. I didn't even think. I ran to Mason's room, grabbed him from bed. He barely stirred, and locked us both in the bathroom. I turned the shower on to mask sound and pulled my phone out. No bars, no Wi-Fi, no emergency calling, nothing. I remembered what Mr. Harper said, that the walkie-talkie was the only way to communicate out here. Against every instinct I had, I powered it back on. The second the walkie-talkie came alive, it hissed. Then a man's voice, more distinct this time. She locked the door. I don't like when they lock the door. I clutched Mason tighter. He whimpered once but didn't cry. I covered his ears and tried to slow my breathing. I don't know how long I sat there, 10 minutes? 20? I kept expecting the doorknob to turn, for the lights to flicker, for someone to pound their way in. Instead, we heard the footsteps, slow, heavy, shuffling outside the bathroom, back and forth. Then stillness. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock, knock, knock. Mason started to tremble. I rocked him, trying to muffle both our breaths. Then suddenly headlights. A car door slammed outside. Then another. The sound of keys. The front door opened. The footsteps in the hallway. Retreated. I burst out of the bathroom with Mason in my arms just as the Harpers stepped inside. Mrs. Harper gasped. Mr. Harper's eyes scanned the scene, landing on the walkie-talkie in my hand. You answered, didn't you? I didn't know what to say. We sat in the kitchen, the Harpers across from me, Mason curled up in my lap, half asleep but safe. I told them everything. The static, the whispers, the footsteps, the knocking, the voice. They didn't ask me if I was sure, didn't question my version of events, they just looked tired. Mrs. Harper finally spoke. It's been happening since before we bought the place. We hear him too, mostly in winter. He never comes inside, unless someone talks back. Mr. Harper nodded grimly. We've learned to ignore it. Mason knows the rules. The previous owners left the radios when they moved. Told us it was part of the condition of the house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And you just live here? Raise a kid here? Mrs. Harper lowered her eyes. You get used to some things. Others you can't afford to run from. I left as soon as I could. I didn't even want the money. The next morning, I told one of my classmates, Kevin, who was training to be a sheriff's deputy. He offered to drive out with me to check the woods. Part of me wanted closure. Part of me just wanted to know I hadn't imagined it. Behind the house, through the trees, we found a shack. Half collapsed. Rotting wood and rusted hinges. Inside, we found a crate. Dusty. Full of old walkie-talkies. One had a name carved into it. Faint but legible. Evan. That's when I remembered something Mrs. Harper had said once in passing during the job call. Something about Mason being their miracle child. We lost the first one, she'd said softly. But Mason made it. I never babysat again. I stopped sleeping with my earbuds in. But sometimes when the dorm's quiet and the lights are off, I swear I still hear static. Once at 3 a.m. I heard a whisper through the speakers of my laptop. You're not his mother. Some warnings don't come with flashing lights. Sometimes they come through static and whispers in the spaces we're told to ignore. Always listen, especially when a child tells you something adults pretend isn't there. They say you can't outrun your past, but I never thought mine would find me in a quiet neighborhood in Middleton Heights, Indiana. Not after everything I went through. Not after I left my classroom behind, packed up my life in a cardboard box and started over, shakily, on my therapist's advice. 3 months earlier, I had a panic attack in front of 26 first graders during what should have been a routine math lesson. One of my students, Marcus, had an emotional meltdown. He flipped his desk, screamed something about shadows in the corners. I tried to calm him down, to ground myself too, but something about the rawness in his voice, the sheer desperation, broke through my professional shell. I spiraled. I froze. I couldn't breathe. The school placed me on leave the next day. I swore off kids for a while, but therapy's expensive and medication doesn't pay for itself. My therapist, Dr. Hill, suggested exposure therapy. Low-pressure situations, she said. Dip your toes back in. I thought she meant visiting my sister's kids or reading to children at the library. She meant babysitting. A former coworker vouched for me on a local parent network, and that's how I ended up at 59 Alderberry Lane on May 19, 2021. It was a Wednesday, warm but overcast, and I was already tense when I rang the Claxtons' doorbell. The couple, Rachel and Damon Claxton, answered together. They were tidy, composed, almost clinical. No warm welcome, no lingering chat, just clipped smiles and instructions. Our daughter Zara is sensitive to routine, Rachel told me. She has a schedule we follow every evening without fail. It will be on the counter. Please don't deviate from it. Damon didn't say much. He handed me the emergency contacts on a printed sheet, nodded once, and checked his watch. They left at 5:08 p.m. Zara was polite but quiet. She didn't meet my eyes when I crouched to say hi. Natalie, we'll hang out tonight, okay? Hi, sweetie. She nodded once. Okay. She looked like any normal 8-year-old, neatly dressed, brown hair in 2 braids, hands clasped together like she'd been coached on how to behave. After they left, I headed to the kitchen to find this famous schedule. There was nothing there. No paper, no post-it, no email ping on my phone. I checked the fridge, the counter, the dining table. Nothing. I crouched down next to Zara, who had quietly retreated to the living room couch and was hugging her knees. Hey, hun, do you know where the schedule is? She whispered. Mom hides it. I blinked. Why? She shrugged. She says I shouldn't touch it. I paused. Okay. Do you remember what we're supposed to do first? She hesitated. TV or dinner? I don't know. I smiled gently. That's okay, let's do dinner. That's always a good start. She flinched. We're not supposed to eat yet. I chuckled nervously. It's okay, I won't tell. But halfway through heating up the chicken nuggets, Zara started to cry. Silent tears at first, then soft sobs. "She'll know," she said. "Who will?" She didn't answer, just repeated, "She always knows." That was when the stereo turned on in the living room. I didn't touch it. Zara didn't either. 1 second it was silent, and the next a soft, distant lullaby floated out. An old-fashioned tune, something out of a music box, the kind that plays when the ballerina twirls. Zara screamed, "Turn it off, that's her song. That means she's watching." I bolted into the room, pulled the plug from the wall. The music stopped, but my heart didn't. "Sweetie," I said, kneeling down. "Who's watching?" "The real babysitter," she said, eyes wide. "The one in the mirror." I don't scare easy. I've worked with kids long enough to hear all kinds of strange things. Imaginary friends, monsters under the bed, dark closets that breathe. But there was something in Zara's voice, something practiced. Not imaginative, familiar. "The real babysitter," I repeated, keeping my voice calm. "What do you mean?" "She watches the schedule," Zara said, wrapping her arms around herself. "Gets mad. If we mess it up, who is she?" She shook her head and walked away. I followed. By 7:30, we were sitting on the rug in the playroom. I was trying to keep the atmosphere light, coloring, asking questions about school. Then Zara got up, walked to her little backpack and pulled out a small red photo album. "This is the schedule," she said. I opened it. Every page was labeled with a time. 5:30, 6:15, 7. Each time had a photo of Zara doing something, brushing teeth, eating cereal, coloring, playing piano. But in every single photo there was a mirror in the background. And in every mirror was a woman, pale, wearing a gray nightgown, black holes for eyes. No expression, no motion, just watching. I dropped the album. "Who took these?" Zara looked down. "Mom." My stomach dropped. "Why's she in the pictures?" "She's always there," she said softly. "That's why we follow the schedule." My hands were cold. "Zara, how long has she been here?" she whispered. "Since my old babysitter got sick." I wanted to leave. My brain screamed at me to grab my keys and go. But I couldn't leave this girl, not like this, not with something no one was explaining. At 8 gone sharp, the lights flickered. I mean all of them. Kitchen, hallway, living room, every bulb, just once. Then the hallway mirror glowed faintly, and I saw her. A tall figure, pale as smoke, standing just behind my reflection. She didn't move, just stared. I turned around. Nothing was there. "Closet," I whispered. "Come on." I pulled Zara down the hall into the guest bedroom, thankfully mirror-free, and opened the closet. "In here," I said. "We'll be safe." Zara didn't ask questions. She just crawled in and pressed her back against the wall. I pulled the door shut and sat in front of her, clutching my phone like a weapon. We stayed there for what felt like forever. I kept checking my phone, 9:03 p.m., 9:47, 10:12. I texted the Claxtons again. Still no response. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I say? A ghost is watching us through mirrors? Zara fell asleep around 10:30, head resting against my side. I stayed wide awake, every creak of the house setting off alarms in my brain. At 11:15, the stereo turned back on. Not softly this time, blaring. And over the lullaby, I heard a woman's voice whispering through the static, "You forgot bath time." I shot up, heart pounding. Zara stirred. I grabbed her hand. "We're leaving." I didn't wait. I opened the closet door, crept to the guest room door and peeked into the hallway. No sound, no movement, but the glow from the mirror was back. We bolted. Out the bedroom, down the stairs, through the kitchen, past the stereo, still playing. I didn't stop to unplug it. I didn't look in the mirrors. I yanked open the front door barefoot and ran. We crossed to the neighbor's house and knocked until they answered. I told them what happened. They called the police. The Claxtons got home at 12:42 a.m. Damon looked surprised to see the patrol car. Rachel didn't. When I told them what happened, Rachel didn't argue. She didn't even seem confused. She asked one thing. Did she follow you outside? My throat dried. What? She's not supposed to leave the house. I stared at her. Who is she? What is she? Rachel looked at Zara, then back at me. She watches. That's her job. You broke the schedule. I left. Refused the money. Blocked their number. 2 weeks later, I quit babysitting. Got a new job working remotely for an educational nonprofit. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me off my feet, out of strangers' houses and nowhere near mirrors. I thought that would be the end of it. But 2 months later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a single photo. It showed me and Zara in the guest room closet. The shot was grainy, like from an old camcorder. The closet door was cracked open just enough to see us. And behind us, the pale woman in the gray nightgown, standing silently, watching. I moved apartments, changed my number, and I never sat near mirrors again. Not all routines are harmless. Sometimes what looks like control is containment. And sometimes when your gut tells you to run, listen. I never thought I'd go back to childcare. After Luxembourg, I swore it off forever. That job was 12 months of quiet corners, manipulated schedules, emotional neglect so extreme that even the children seemed drained. By the time I came home, I felt hollowed out, anxious, unable to sleep. I stayed with my childhood friend Tasha in Montana, taking odd jobs, attending group therapy, trying to rebuild something that resembled normalcy. And still the bills piled up. So when Tasha forwarded me that babysitting gig, easy money, sweet kid, no weird requests, I sighed and agreed, telling myself it would be just one night. I'd survive. I had to. October in Willow Creek was crisp and golden. The air smelled like upcoming snow. When I pulled into the driveway at 3089 Red Fern Drive at 6 o'clock, the house looked charming. Amber trees rustling, an old porch swing, ivy creeping up weathered siding. It felt safe. But I'd learned how deceiving appearances can be. James and Meredith Sayer greeted me politely. Their daughter Lillian was 6, pale and quiet, holding a frayed stuffed lamb, her only companion. The couple seemed composed, almost detached. Meredith gave me instructions in a measured tone. They'd return around 1. Bedtime was 8:30. Lillian was very independent and please don't let her go into the upstairs guest room. James said it was unsafe, flooring being remodeled. That should have been enough red flag. I nodded and stepped inside. I watched Lillian from the living room floor as she gently hummed to her lamb, whispering to it like it was a confidant. She didn't ask to play or watch TV. She just sat, still as a statue. I tried introducing myself gently. Hi, I'm Callie. We'll hang out tonight. She nodded, barely looking at me. I followed her cues and sat quietly nearby, pulling out a book and pretending to read, though my nerves buzzed under the surface. Time passed slowly. I thought about how much gentler things would have to be. No unpredictability, no emotional landmines. But ironically, the stillness weighed heavier than chaos ever could. At 7:45, I went into the kitchen to rinse a dish, and when I came back, Lillian was gone. My breath caught. I searched, calling softly, "Lillian?" No answer. My heart pounded as I climbed stairs, calling again. I found her at the top of the stairs outside the locked guest room. She stood still and whispered, "She's in there. She wants me to sleep upstairs tonight." I tensed. That room was forbidden. I hurried to her side, gently guiding her back. She didn't resist, but she looked at the door and whispered, "She says you don't believe in her. That's why she's angry." My chest tightened. I checked the door, locked. Inside, something scratched lightly, soft but unmistakable. I pulled the door closed and led Lillian back downstairs. My mind raced. Was I starting to hallucinate? After Luxembourg, I'd become hyper-vigilant. I told myself, "You're anxious. You're imagining it." But something about Lillian's tone and that door unsettled me more than any screaming child ever had. Lillian fell asleep by 8:30, curled in bed with her lamb. She refused stories, only faintly asked for the door cracked just the way she likes. I tucked her in and left, standing in the hallway a moment, dreading the house's quiet. I settled on the couch downstairs, phone in hand. No signal from Tasha, no response from the Sayers. The air felt too still, the house too dark. My muscles tensed toward every sound. Around 9 p.m., the baby monitor lit up. I leaned forward, hearing slow, deliberate breathing. Not Lillian's, heavier, adult. Panic blooming in me, I bolted upstairs. Lillian lay peacefully asleep. All seemed calm, except the closet door. It was open. Her lamb was missing. My throat caught. I whispered her name. Silence. I retreated, adrenaline rushing. Back downstairs, I took the monitor again. The screen split. One feed of Lillian's room and a second I hadn't been told about. The guest room. My blood froze. The image was grainy, black and white. A woman sat on the bed, long gray hair falling over her face. She held the lamb, slowly rocking. The timestamp at the corner glared. Live. I dropped back onto the stairs, shaking. The door to that room had been locked. I had never seen that second camera. I fumbled for my phone, dialing James, straight to voicemail. Meredith, same. My hands trembled beneath my blouse as the woman's rocking slowed, just holding the lamb. I barely breathed. I screamed up the stairs, hitting the door with fists, my voice cracking. Hello? Is someone in there? No response. Then, slowly, the door creaked open on its own. I staggered inside, breathing harsh. Darkness swallowed the room. I flicked on my flashlight. The floor creaked beneath me as I noticed the rocking chair, dent, swung slightly. On the floor lay the lamb, placed deliberately. I reached down and grabbed it, my hand shaking. My breath caught when I turned to the mirror. There I was, holding a child. But not Lillian. A girl around 8, pale, with hollow eyes and rope burn marks circling her wrists. She looked at me with something that seemed like recognition, not curiosity. Recognition. My blood ran cold. The air felt thick. My past trauma crawled to the forefront. Empty rooms, whispers to walls. I jolted, backing out of the door. I ran downstairs with Lillian in my arms, wrapping her in a blanket. My mind spun. Adrenaline pulsed through my veins. I waited on the porch, barely noticing the shrub shadows. I sat until headlights swept across the yard. The Sayers arrived at 1:05 a.m. They stepped out like statues. James first, confusion in his eyes. Then Meredith. I stood trembling, clutching the lamb, tears leaking. I demanded answers. Who was that? Why was that girl in the mirror? Meredith's composure cracked. She looked away, voice quiet. That room belonged to our first daughter, Eliza. She passed away in that room 5 years ago. James's tone was soft but strained. We kept the monitor on, in case she ever came back. I turned, unable to speak, the lamb heavy with dread. I refused payment. I left without a word, walking to my car through the cold Montana air. I didn't look back. I stayed with Tasha that night, shaking until dawn. I stopped nannying after that. Eventually, I found remote work. No strangers' homes, no lonely rooms. I never stepped near mirrors again. 1 week later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a crude drawing, childlike and unsettling. 2 little girls holding hands. One was Lillian, the other unmistakable. The hollow-eyed girl, wrists marked. At the bottom, in shaky crayon handwriting, now she has someone to talk to again. That drawing now lives in my desk drawer, folded carefully. I've never opened it again. Not every old house is haunted by fear. Sometimes it's the memories we lock away that keep watching. And routine rules can become barriers that separate grief and healing. When something feels wrong, Trust your gut. Even ghosts deserve to be noticed, and sometimes the only way someone finds peace is by being seen. People say independence is freedom. For me, it started as a necessity. I was 21 when I signed the lease for a tiny studio above a nail salon on East Latchmere Street in Camden Flats. The kind of place with peeling window trim, paper-thin walls, and a ceiling that groaned louder than I did after a 12-hour study shift. But it was mine. No roommates, no drunk stepbrother punching holes in drywall, no tiptoeing around my dad's mood swings. Just silence and space. I'd earned it after years of bouncing between houses, arguments, and people who thought saying "you're tough" was the same as being there for you. To make rent, I babysat. Nights mostly, after classes. I was finishing my first year in the forensic science program at the county college. It made for a weird schedule, but it worked. Then Rosalie, my landlord's niece, knocked on my door one evening, looking frazzled and a little desperate. She lived just downstairs in 1B, a hospice nurse working overnights. She had a 3-year-old daughter named May, and she needed someone she could trust a few nights a week. "You wouldn't have to leave the building," she said. "Study. I'll pay cash. May usually sleeps through. You could..." It sounded perfect. Same building, no driving, extra money. I agreed without thinking much of it. I didn't really know Rosalie. She was polite but closed off, like someone always holding back the real version of themselves. That night, November 9th, I knocked on her door at 7:55 p.m. She answered quickly, looking even more worn than usual. "She's already asleep," Rosalie said quietly, smoothing her daughter's hair in the crib. "Shouldn't wake up. Just don't go upstairs." I paused. "Upstairs?" Rosalie hesitated. "There's a tenant above me, my brother. He keeps to himself. He won't bother you. But if you hear noises, don't react. Just let it be, please." Something about the way she said that stuck in my chest. I wanted to ask more, but she was already halfway out the door. "Emergency numbers on the fridge. Thank you again," she called softly. And then I was alone in her dim, lavender-scented apartment. The first hour passed quietly. I sat on the couch, laptop open, catching up on notes from my forensic pathology class. I could hear the faint hum of the heater and May's soft breathing through the baby monitor. Around 9:30 p.m. I heard it. Footsteps above me. Slow. Heavy. Back and forth like pacing. Then a long dragging sound, followed by a thump. I froze. The top unit, from everything I knew, was unoccupied. I had seen the building directory, only 2 names, mine and Rosalie's. Yet someone was up there, moving. I muted my laptop and stood slowly, straining to listen. Another thump, this time sharper, like a chair being tipped over. Rosalie's words echoed in my head. "He won't bother you. Just don't go upstairs." Was this normal? If it was her brother, why wasn't he listed? Why did she avoid saying his name? I called Rosalie, straight to voicemail. Out of instinct, I walked to the front window and looked outside. No car, no lights in the 3rd floor unit. The curtains were drawn. The place looked empty. The hallway light outside flickered, then went out completely. I tried the porch light switch. Nothing. Darkness. That's when I heard it. The baby monitor crackling to life. A voice, low and hoarse. "Why did you move the girl into my room?" I dropped the monitor. I ran into May's room. She was asleep, curled up, but her nightlight was unplugged. The window was open an inch, the curtains fluttering. I shut it fast, locked it, and checked the closet. Empty. Heart pounding, I picked May up and carried her back into the living room. Then came the knocking, not on the door, on the ceiling. Measured, calm, like someone tapping with their knuckles. My legs trembled, my breath went shallow. I had to know what was happening. I had to go upstairs. The stairwell smelled like mildew and stale carpet. I don't remember walking. I floated, barefoot, holding May against my chest as I climbed toward the third floor. The door at the top was cracked open, the only one on that level. The unit inside was barely lit, just a sliver of moonlight through broken blinds. The air was thick and warm, like it hadn't been circulated in years. The walls were peeling, streaked with what looked like handprints. In the corner, on a stained mattress, sat a man. He was facing the wall. A pillowcase was tied over his head, and silver duct tape bound his wrists in his lap. His breathing was shallow, rasping. I stepped back, horrified. That's when I saw the walls, drawings, hundreds of them, children's sketches taped in rows, all the same girl, small, pale, with long black hair and no mouth. In each one, she stood in a different room. May's room, the kitchen, the hallway, always near something broken, always staring. And then, next to the light switch, a note. Stop bringing the children. She wakes up when they cry. I ran. I didn't think. I carried May back down the stairs, my hands shaking, my feet barely touching the floor. We locked ourselves in the bathroom. I sat with my back against the door, May tucked into my arms, my phone clutched in my palm. I called Rosalie again. No answer. I started dialing 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line. I whispered everything I could. The man upstairs, the drawings, the voice on the monitor. She said officers were on the way. Minutes crawled. I sat frozen on the cold bathroom tile, May half asleep in my lap. Every creak in the walls made me jump. Then I heard keys in the front door. Jenna? Rosalie's voice frantic. I unlocked the door and stared her down. What's going on? Who is he? She sank to her knees crying. My brother, she whispered. He's not well. He hasn't been for a long time. I was supposed to place him in care, but I couldn't do it. He was always quiet, always controlled. But when May cries, he hears things. Like the girl with no mouth? I asked. Rosalie froze. He used to talk about her when he first moved in, she said, eyes wet. Said a girl lived up there before us, a girl who died. But there's no record, nothing official. Still, he hears her. Says she gets angry when kids are near. I stepped back. You left your daughter here with that. I didn't think, she started, but I didn't want to hear it. The officers arrived within minutes. They found him upstairs, unresponsive but alive, covered in scars, dehydrated, starving. CPS was called immediately. May was taken in for care. Rosalie was questioned. I didn't go back upstairs. I didn't go back to the studio either. I moved out 2 days later, packed everything I owned into the back seat of my car and left Camden Flats behind. I've never been back. People ask why I left. I tell them it was mold, noise, bad heating. I don't say it was the man with the pillowcase. I don't say it was the girl with no mouth. But I remember May's words the next morning before the social worker came. She looked at me, calm and wide-eyed, and said, waking her up, "The girl with no mouth says thank you, for I didn't respond. Some things you don't question. You just listen. Trust your instincts." We teach kids to speak up when they feel unsafe, but we forget that same rule applies to adults. Fear is a survival tool, not a weakness. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Sometimes the quietest voices are the ones screaming to be heard. And sometimes the scariest things aren't what you see, but what you choose to ignore. I stared at the phone in my hand, Mrs. Tilda Grover calling for a sitter in Easton Heights, while I sat on the edge of my dorm bed. I was 19, a freshman studying child psychology, trying to rebuild myself after the worst thing imaginable happened. My 7-year-old sister Hallie drowned in our backyard pool 2 years ago while I was supposed to be watching her. That guilt has been carved into me ever since. I've been terrified of children, of responsibility, of what might happen if I ever looked away again. When Mrs. Grover called, I hesitated. I didn't need the money. I desperately needed to prove to myself I wasn't broken. So I said yes. I wanted to feel okay around kids again. Careful, watchful, dependable, maybe even brave. When I arrived at 1962 Birch Grove Avenue at 6 p.m. on March 13, 2022, the house looked like something out of decades past. A wide porch sagging under hulking azalea bushes, peeling white paint, curtains half drawn. Inside smelled like mothballs and old wood. Clients of Mrs. Grover described her as a retired schoolteacher, kind, firm, but there was a guarded tone in her voice when she greeted me. "Thank you for coming, dear. Braden will be in his room after dinner. Use the snacks on the sideboard. There's one door. Don't go inside that room." She pointed across the hallway. A narrow bedroom across from Braden's door had a heavy wooden door. Locked. "It's old storage. Please don't open it, or let him near it." Her eyes flicked toward that door. I nodded, uncertain. Braden, her 6-year-old grandson, looked shy. He barely spoke unless asked. He played with toy cars silently, sorting them into neat rows on the floor. When I offered to read him a story, he looked at the small bookshelf and chose a battered paperback. My Sister Lives Under the Floor. A nervous chuckle tumbled out of me, but when I looked at him, he stared back and whispered, "It's not a story, she's still mad." I froze. "Who's mad?" He tilted his head toward that locked door. "Emmy, she's not allowed to come out." He said it plainly, eyes serious as if he was describing something real. I tried to laugh, soft and unnatural. Maybe Emmy was his imaginary friend. Or maybe Braden had a vivid imagination. I told him that was okay, and he slipped back into playing. I spent the evening trying to appear calm, preparing dinner, checking the baby monitor, giving Braden juice and crackers. But my own chest felt tight, haunted by a memory of Hallie slipping beneath that same still surface of water. My throat closed when I thought of what grief had done to my family. After dinner, I tucked Braden into bed, reading a few pages of a gentle story. His voice came soft and trailing. "Emmy watches me sleep." A chill went through me. I sat beside him while he drifted off. When he finally closed his eyes, I tiptoed away. I remembered the locked door across the hall. Tilda had repeated her warning twice. Don't open it. Don't let Braden near it. I stood at the threshold of that hallway with my heart hammering. All the silence in the house seemed pregnant with something dark. I flipped off the hallway light and retreated to the living room beyond. By 9:42 p.m., the house felt oppressive. The only sound was the muffled hum of the refrigerator and the creak of my own breathing. I was reading notes for class, trying to steady myself. Then I heard scratching. Soft, deliberate. Inside the locked bedroom. At first I thought I was imagining it, but the noise grew steady. I shut my book and stood up. I tiptoed down the hallway toward the locked door, my legs shaking. I placed a trembling hand on the knob. It was ice cold. I pressed my ear to the door and I heard breathing. Slow, ragged. Then a whisper. "Tell him to stop pretending I don't exist." My hand dropped. I staggered back. My chest heaved with fear. I felt sick. I retreated into the living room, palms sweaty, shaking. I sat with my head in my hands. My own chest pounded reminders of guilt. How I'd looked away for a second. How Hallie slipped away from me. I promised I would never let something like that happen again. I checked the monitor. Braden slept. I tried to text Tilda Grover. No reply. I debated leaving. But then I thought of Braden and how fragile he seemed. So I stayed. At 10:30 p.m., Braden came out of his room holding a crayon drawing. I forced a calmer voice. "You're awake?" He held it out. The sketch showed a narrow bedroom with a girl inside, arms outstretched, mouth stitched shut, and scrawled at the bottom, "She watches me sleep." I swallowed. I asked softly, "Tell me about Emmy." Braden's eyes locked onto mine. He whispered, "She used to have a room. Then she made Nana mad. She broke the baby." Then he turned and walked back to his bed. I didn't follow. The words "broke the baby" turned in my brain. I had chills. I went back to the living room, shaken. I couldn't make sense of any of it, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. By 11:17 p.m., I felt dizzy from fear and exhaustion. I decided to go to Braden's room to calm him, and maybe convince myself it was all in his imagination. His door was open just slightly. I stepped inside, but then I heard it again, rattling. The locked door, down the hall, quietly rattling from the inside. I looked back at Braden. He was already sitting up in bed. He looked calmer than before, or more resolved. "She's not in her room anymore," he said softly. "She's in mine." Then I heard it. The closet door creaked. I turned slowly. It was open now, just a crack, but enough. Bare feet in the shadows, small, pale. I felt a scream rise in me. I ran forward, grabbed Braden, backed out, closed his room door, locked it with trembling hands. I held him and carried him back to the bathroom. We shut the door behind us. I leaned my back against it. Braden pressed against me. I whispered, "We're okay. Just breathe." My hands shook uncontrollably. I sat barefoot on the cold tile and pressed my thumb on the phone. I called 911. I explained everything. "Child services and police are on their way, ma'am. Stay on the line with me until they arrive." The minutes ticked by so slowly. I kept my eyes half closed, terrified to look at Braden's face. When the police finally arrived, around 12:15 a.m., there was pounding at the front door. I opened it in a daze. Officers in uniforms. They asked questions compassionately. Tilda Grover answered behind them, bewildered. In the next hour, everything came crashing down. The police forced open the locked bedroom. I followed, hands shaking. The air inside was rancid. In one corner, under loose floorboards and a rusted vent, they found human remains of a small child, long hidden. The body had been concealed beneath a sealed floor vent, covered with rotten floorboards. They identified her as Emmeline Grover, Braden's older sister. She had died, unreported, apparently months or years ago. No records, no official notice. The bedroom had become her tomb. Braden stood quiet and solemn as they gently led him away. He didn't cry or panic. He stared as they uncovered the truth. Mrs. Grover collapsed to the floor. She was taken away for psychiatric evaluation. Police revealed she had never reported Emmy's death. Had tried to hide it, she said, out of shame, fear, guilt. They weren't sure what to believe. CPS moved Braden into foster care temporarily to keep him safe. The house went dark and silent. I left with nothing but my phone and pride in how I stayed composed when everything unraveled. I didn't know how to feel. Relief? Horror? Guilt bubbling up again? I moved out of Easton Heights within days. I didn't look back. I didn't keep mementos. The house at 1962 Birch Grove vanished from my memory, except when sleep overtook me and I dreamed. Now, whenever I dream of that house, there's a moment before waking when Hallie stands in the locked bedroom too. She's silent, expression empty, and she asks the same question every time. "Why didn't you come for me?" I wake up gasping as though reality is splitting me apart. I've spent months in therapy trying to believe I deserve peace, trying to remind myself I responded correctly, that I saved Braden. I did good that night. I did what I had to. But sometimes silence is heavier than the truth. Guilt's an echo you can't silence. Trust your intuition, even when you doubt yourself. Trauma doesn't make you weak, it makes you vigilant. Caring for others means listening to children, to silence, to what you don't understand. Never ignore warnings, even if they whisper from behind a locked door. Sometimes the most desperate voices are those we never expected to hear. I moved back to Eugene in April 2023, emotionally and financially exhausted. Dropping out of university was hard. Student loans piling, my bookstore hours cut, and my mental health crumbling. My older cousin Ava offered me a basement room at her house in Silver Pine Residence, temporary, but safe. That quiet neighborhood outside the city limits felt like a refuge. Tall pines carpeting the nights, crickets chanting as dusk fell. I hadn't planned to babysit again. 2 years earlier, I'd suffered a total panic attack when an 8-year-old I was watching vanished in a crowded grocery store. The terror stuck. My confidence shattered. But when Ava asked if I could watch her daughter Zoe for one weekend, just until Sunday morning, I couldn't say no. Part guilt, part wanting to prove I still could. On Saturday afternoon, Ava left promptly at 5 p.m. She read a detailed routine on the kitchen island: dinner times, emergency numbers, Wi-Fi password, neighborhood watch texts. Zoe, 8, was polite but unnervingly quiet. She stayed on the couch playing a handheld puzzle game or occasionally peeking through the window at the long driveway and front yard. By 8:30 p.m., we'd eaten pasta with vegetables, played a simple board game, and watched an animated movie. Zoe mostly stayed curled into the couch arm. She occasionally glanced at the front gate through the window. At 9:10 p.m., she asked quietly, "Is the gate supposed to be open?" I turned to look. The old iron gate, Ava had told me it was rusted and locked years ago, was ajar. No wind rustling the trees, no breeze on the still air. I frowned and said I'd check it later. Zoe shrugged and returned to the movie. Around 10:30 p.m., Zoe was asleep upstairs. I curled up with tea on the couch, trying to relax. That gate incident wouldn't leave my mind. I relocked front, side, and back doors. Still felt unsettled. At 11:15 p.m., I noticed several texts from Ava, checking in, asking about Zoe's homework, mentioning some strange reports in the neighborhood. I responded that everything was fine and asked what those reports meant. No reply. I switched off the TV around 11:40, heading upstairs when I heard tap, tap, tap. My heart lurched. At the kitchen window, I saw faint condensation on the inside, but outside, I glimpsed a shadow moving slowly, carefully. No wind, no breeze. The shape blended into the darkness beyond the porch light. I froze, crouched low, spatula in hand as makeshift weapon. But nothing solid appeared. I checked Zoe's closed door. She murmured, eyes half open. Mom said not to go near the windows if he comes back. My blood ran cold. "Who's coming back?" I asked, voice trembling. She closed her eyes again, silent. I sat on the couch, nerves frayed. At exactly 12:37 a.m., I heard a metal clink outdoors. I grabbed the cordless home phone, turned off domestic lights, and crouched next to the living room front window. Through the gloom, I saw him. A man stood past the gate under dim outdoor lighting. Tall, narrow build, arms at his sides, not trying to come in, not calling out, just standing, facing the house, partially in shadow. Then he tilted his head, as though listening. My breath hitched. I dialed 911 in a whisper. I explained everything, my voice shaky, trying not to alarm Zoe. The dispatcher said they'd dispatch a car but warned that the rural location might mean a 20-30-minute wait. I turned back to the window, but he was gone. The quiet exploded inside me. I quietly checked all locks again, then grabbed a kitchen knife. I stayed on the couch, back rigid, listening for any noise. At 1:05 a.m., my phone rang with Ava calling, her voice urgent but calm. She asked if everything was okay. I told her about the man at the gate and the note about strange neighborhood activity. We agreed she would return early if needed. Time blurred. Every house creak felt like footsteps. Every rustle outside sounded intentional. At 2:07 a.m., the garage light turned on. Panic slammed into me. I crept upstairs, grabbed Zoe, and whispered, "We need to go now, okay?" She nodded silently, clutching her teddy. We moved through the house with bare feet across cold wood, doors locked behind us. The garage door slowly creaked open. Metal tracks groaned. For a moment I froze, but instead of hiding, I sprinted. Together, Zoe and I ran across the lawn, bare feet damp with dew. I guided her toward a neighbor's porch 3 houses down. Knocked frantically. The neighbor, startled, let us inside. She called the police again in calm urgency. Officers arrived within 15 minutes. They found no forced entry, no footprints, nothing disturbed inside except the garage partially open, and the front gate swung wide. I told them about the man, the note, and Zoe's whispered warnings. They scoured the yard, checked door hinges, inspected security cameras. Nothing obvious. Then an officer leaned over the mailbox and carefully pulled out a note stuck between its frame. You were quieter this time. No signature, no other clue. Detectives filed a report, took witness statements, and increased neighborhood patrols. Ava returned at 3:45 a.m. She threw her arms around Zoe. She was shaken but relieved we were safe. We filed police statements side by side. 2 weeks later, Ava and I packed and moved me back into my cousin's apartment in town. Cameras installed at her home by the gate and driveway. Neighbors formed a watch group. The man was never found. I never babysat again. Not because I felt fear, but because something deeper lingered. I couldn't shake Zoe's unspoken knowledge. The way she half-mentioned warnings, what she heard, and what she sensed about that man and the house being watched. Sometimes late at night, I replay the vision of him standing there, tilting his head, and the note. Sometimes I see Zoe in my memory, glancing at the windows in silent vigilance as if she expected someone. Her silence haunted me more than his presence. Sometimes safety isn't about locking doors, but acknowledging subtle warnings. Childlike silence or unease often speaks volumes. Listening matters, even when explanations don't come. Trauma doesn't weaken you, it sharpens your perception. In everyday quiet, sometimes the most dangerous presence is the one who never moves but never leaves. If something doesn't feel right, trust it. I didn't think the first night I'd earn money on my own would be the night I thought I might disappear. After my grandma passed away, things got weird fast. She had raised me since I was 3, and when she died of a stroke in January, I had no legal guardian left except my aunt and uncle. They took me in, sure, but it wasn't love. I was a legal inconvenience, not someone they wanted around. They fed me, gave me a room, and rarely spoke unless they needed something. I ate dinner alone most nights and learned to keep my head down. I started looking for ways to earn money. I wasn't delusional. I knew I wasn't buying a car or getting out overnight. But I had this jar labeled Escape Fund, and every few dollars gave me a reason to keep going. That's how I found the babysitting app. Most jobs posted were taken instantly by girls with 5-star reviews and smiling photos. I had neither. No references, no experience outside of watching a neighbor's kid twice when I was 13. But on March 25th, a Friday, I got a notification. Overnight booking, 1 child, $140 cash. The username was Thomas Clary. No profile picture, no reviews. I hesitated, then accepted. When I arrived at 9:30 p.m., the house didn't look like a family lived there. No tricycle on the lawn, no porch light. Just a clean, quiet 2-story with barely there curtains and an empty feel. Thomas answered the door in a gray button-up, early 40s maybe, hair neatly combed, polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You must be Haley," he said, stepping back to let me in. "Would take an overnight." "Thanks for coming, not many kids." "I'm not a kid," I replied quietly. Inside, the place smelled faintly like bleach. Furniture was basic. Neutral couch, blank walls, no photos, no toys, no clutter. He said his daughter Maya was already asleep upstairs. "Long week," he added with a soft laugh. "She's exhausted." I asked if I could just see where her room was in case she needed anything. He hesitated. "Rather not disturb her. She's a deep sleeper. You can just hang out downstairs." That was the first red flag. I should have trusted it more. He offered me tea, which I declined. I was already on edge. Something about the way he sat down and asked questions about my school and hobbies. Too many questions, all said with a tone that felt practiced. I gave short answers. Didn't smile. Just waited. After a few minutes of silence, he stood and said, "All right, I've got to head to work. Night shift." I'll be back around 6. Maya sleeps like a rock, but call if anything comes up. Then he left. The second the door clicked shut, I counted to 30 and started moving. I told myself maybe he was just weird. Maybe Maya really was asleep. But I needed to know. Upstairs, I opened doors one by one. The first room, home office, completely empty except a laptop and desk. Second room, guest bed, unused. Third door, totally bare. Walls, carpet, no furniture, no bedding. Just a dusty window and a light bulb. No Maya. A cold sweat ran down my spine. My hands started shaking. I grabbed my phone and texted the app's emergency support number. No response. I called the phone number listed under Thomas's profile, straight to voicemail. No personal greeting, just the default voice. I locked every door, turned on lights in each room, and sat on the couch, back against the armrest so I could see everything. That silence turned the house into a scream. At 12:20 a.m., the light above me flickered. I stared at it, frozen. Then I heard it. The front door lock shifting, keys turning. He was back. I ducked into the kitchen and crouched behind the counter. I heard the door open. His footsteps were soft, careful. He didn't call out, didn't ask about Maya. Just walked slowly through the living room. My backpack was near the laundry room door. If I made it there, I could slip out. My breath caught in my throat as he passed the fridge. For one moment, I saw the edge of his sleeve. I moved. Slow. Quiet. Just like he had. I slipped out the side door and into the cold night air. No jacket, no shoes. My heart pounded as I fast walked through the backyard, then around the fence. I didn't dare run until I hit the corner. Then I sprinted. I called the only adult I could think of, Ava's mom. She'd driven me home from practice a few times. Her voice was steady when she picked up. I told her everything. She didn't hesitate, said, "Stay where you are," and came to get me at a gas station near the corner of Red Pine Road. She didn't ask questions right away, just handed me a hoodie and a bottle of water. The next morning, I filed a report with the police. An officer came to the house and asked questions. We drove to the address. The house was empty. No car in the driveway. No sign of Thomas. The lockbox for the key was gone. And the neighbors? One man said it had been an Airbnb for a while. People came and went. The app listing disappeared by noon. Thomas's number? Disconnected. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't tell my aunt. She wouldn't have believed me. Or worse, she would have blamed me for putting myself in a bad situation. I deleted the app the next morning. I never accepted another babysitting job again. Later, I found out through a Reddit thread that there had been other identity scams on similar platforms that month. Some girls hadn't been so lucky. Some were never found. Some had vanished during what seemed like simple overnight bookings. What keeps me up at night isn't fear. It's the question I still don't know how to answer. Was I meant to be part of something worse? Was someone watching me the entire time? Setting the scene just to see what I'd do? Was it a test, or was I simply the one who escaped? Not every red flag will scream. Sometimes danger whispers. Trust your instincts, especially when no one else is around to tell you what's real. Safety isn't about being brave. It's about knowing when to leave, even if nothing's happened yet. Some doors should never be opened. Some offers, no matter how tempting, are bait disguised as kindness. Listen to your gut. It's not always dramatic, but it might be the only warning you get. I never wanted attention. In fact, I spent most of my life avoiding it. After the roommate drama at school, accusations of stealing my meds, talking behind my back, I'd moved out of the dorm and settled into weekend babysitting. It was safer, predictable work, limited exposure, distance from people who'd hurt me. So when I tapped steadily at the door of Hartwell Townhomes Unit 2C in Tacoma on February 18, 2024, east of Avery Street, I felt ready. Rain drizzled through clouds, gray light staining the red brick facade. The parents, Sean and Dana Maxwell, greeted me quickly, eyes downcast, voices flat. They said they had a charity dinner, would be out from 4 until 10. They handed me cash up front, told me their daughter Harper was napping upstairs. Then Dana paused awkwardly. "Don't go into the basement. We're renovating. The lock's a bit broken. If Harper wakes, you'll know. She usually cries." She didn't elaborate. I nodded. Upstairs, Harper's room was full of drawings, storybooks, soft blankets. The dresser held a few handmade clay figures, distorted faces, angry mouths, jagged eyes. She looked sweet at a glance. Curly hair, round cheeks, calm in her sleep. I set my backpack down and settled in with homework on the living room couch. The hum of the dishwasher and rain against the windows kept me company. Still, something felt off. The house was quiet, too quiet. Hardly a toy in sight, furniture sparse, no family pictures, no warmth. By 6:45 p.m. I went to reheat soup. I noticed the basement door had shifted, the gap between frame and door wider than when I arrived. I frowned, moved closer, touched the knob. Locked. Must have imagined it. Around 7:10 I heard soft shuffling below, not upstairs. I knocked on Harper's door. She lay still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I asked if she was okay. She looked at me slowly, flat tone. The other girl used to sit downstairs. I froze. What other girl? Harper blinked quietly. The one they said not to talk about. I swallowed hard. Harper rolled over, closing her eyes. I texted the Maxwells. No answer. I returned to the living room. Rain outside intensified. Shadows darkened corners. The soft hum of the house felt empty. That's when I felt it. Anxiety, the cracking tension in my chest. Something whispered inside me to leave. But my feet stayed planted. I picked up my phone and texted my brother, telling him I'd leave by 10. For the next half hour, I anchored to the front hall, checking the stairwell, listening for anything. Then nothing. Silence. Though my heart still rattled. At 8:20 p.m., I went back upstairs cautious. I turned on Harper's nightlight and read her a book quietly. She said nothing, just stared ahead or traced shapes in the wall with her gaze. I finished the story, tucked her in, whispered good night. She shifted, eyes closed again. Walking back downstairs, I resolved to check the basement for the sake of my brother's text reassurance. I stood outside the basement door. Rainwater dripped from the ceiling into my hair as I pressed an ear to the frame. Silence. Then a whisper so faint it could have been wind. "You're not like the last one." My blood froze. I staggered back, chest heaving. I didn't know what it meant. My hands shook. I turned away, heart pounding, and stumbled down to the living area. I sat, brain racing. Questions volleyed inside me. Was there someone else downstairs? Who was the last one? I fumbled for my phone, opened my message thread with my brother. Should I tell him? My finger hovered. At 9:10 p.m., the front door clicked. I paused. The basement lights flickered low. The hum changed in the room. I thought maybe the Maxwells returned early, but the sound of them didn't follow. No footsteps upstairs, no greeting. Just the soft locking of the front door. Then silence again. I grabbed my bag, texted my brother, told him to expect me at 10. I steeled myself to leave. At 9:30 p.m., the rain slowed to a drip. I decided to leave immediately. I walked upstairs, grabbed my coat, whispered a soft apology to Harper, and moved into the hallway. As I passed her room, she tugged my coat and whispered, "Don't come back. They don't like when the new ones ask questions." Her voice was small, matter of fact. I froze, a shiver through my spine. Harper lay back down without watching me. I hurried out the front door into rain and found my car keys in my bag. My phone buzzed, a message from my brother asking if he should come pick me up. I typed yes. But as I walked past the basement door, I paused. The lock was swung open. Light spilled out into the hallway, flickering yellow. I heard the faint scrape of footsteps inside. My breath hitched. I realized I was next. I swallowed hard and backed away silently, stepping out to the driveway as thunder rolled. My brother picked me up at 9:50 p.m. I clutched my bag in the back seat, drenched and trembling, telling him only part of the story. He looked concerned, but I couldn't bring myself to start a police report. My trauma made me cautious. Sometimes silence felt safer. 2 days later, I scrolled through a Tacoma Reddit page. Someone posted, "Missing person, 17-year-old